People here have met me. I'm the department head, and this is our kind of annual State of the Department review. We're not going to do any kind of deep dive into any deep academic product. I'm going to spend some time talking about the various missions of the department, as well as some challenges, and leave some time at the end of this for questions. And I imagine now is a good time for lots of questions. I have no relevant financial relationships. I have no batteries left in this thing either. And we're not going to talk about using investigational drugs or off-label uses. All right, it still clicks. Goals are 2017 highlights, sort of basing this through a mission. I can use a mission-based report. Talking about our clinical research and education missions, some ongoing initiatives, and then leaving time at the end for questions. We're going to want to highlight some of our new faculty, some of the things that are happening around philanthropy, events, and recognition. And want to start this off with our new faculty. So we've had a number of additions across the faculty in 2017. This does not include people that started in 2018. But Angela Badaru is a great addition to pediatric endocrinology. Unfortunately, Angela's husband has already been transferred, and she's going to be moving out of country with him and her family. But she was great while she was here. Paula Brito in hospital medicine, Danielle Bullock adding another rheumatologist, Justin Connolly in hospital medicine, Alyssa Downs in GI, Elizabeth Heal, who is a new interventional cardiologist, joining John Bass in Hiremath, and Elizabeth Heal. Stacy Knudsen, a diagnostic cardiologist. Matthew Kudak and David Mills in emergency medicine. Tim Moss, a very exciting addition to our genetics group. Laura Norton, an excellent addition to infectious disease. Meg Oberlin in endocrine, Megan Paulson in neonatology, and Katie Satram. Tina Slusher, who many of you know, as a critical care intensivist at Hennepin, has joined the faculty in a part-time faculty position as well to support the Global Pediatrics program. Josh Thiessen has joined hospital medicine, Bo Weber, Hemonc, and Jamil Winter in neonatology. So lots of additions, lots of excellent individuals. We've had a number of departures as well. Sophie Amundsen has moved on from her role as an emergency medicine pediatrician. Jeff DeMar has left the critical care group. Glenn Gorley is retired. Annie Hall has moved back to Colorado. Youngki Kim retired. Michael Resnick retired. Yang Yang left our hospital medicine program, only to show up almost immediately in Health East at another meeting with us. So I don't know that she's really gone, but she's changed her roles. So a big part of what we do is really funded by philanthropy. And we have tremendous partners at the University of Minnesota Foundation who work with us. And they do it through a number of events, but also through major gifts. These are some of the larger gifts in 17 and 18. So obviously right at the top, there's a $6 million gift from the Kids First Fund, essentially to fund and name the Kids First Fund Comprehensive Fanconi Anemia Center. This is funded by the large part by football coach and his supporters, who has a son who has FA. Another $1 million from CCRF, the Katie Family Fund. Blythe Brendan Mann, who's been an incredible supporter of the Children's Hospital, has donated $500,000 for the integrative health and well-being. Another $500,000 for the adoption, international adoption program. Philip and Amy Goldman Foundation and Jane Glasser Moody Foundation. I really want to congratulate the adoption group for the hard work that they have done to raise this money. This really has been dramatic. Funding for EB, Zach Sobiech Fund. We're going to come to this later. But a whole lot of major gifts, and that forms a big part of what the foundation does. It's not that we give them a list necessarily. We do give them a list of these are the initiatives, these are the things we want to put money into. But part of this is matching the donor's interest with our needs, and they have done a great job of this. Judy Eckerly has worked for years and years, and all of a sudden we have now the Goldman Foundation and the Moody Foundation stepping up to meet these. So people don't always get funded right away through the foundation, but persistence is hugely important. There are also a lot of partnerships that develop, and these are all over 30 new corporate partners that are working with us this year, including things you've heard of, 3M, Cub, Kemp's Love Your Melon, Mall of America has started to be involved, United Healthcare, Children's Foundation. So a lot of new corporate relationships and partnerships. And you actually see these individuals here at the hospital, whether it's building teddy bears to distribute for the kids, working in the kitchens for events, meeting families in the lobby. There are people here all the time, and it's been a great addition. They do this through signature events, and sometimes you'll get tapped to come to one of these events, be a speaker, be involved. The Celebrity Golf Classic happens every fall, I think it is. That's Kyle Rudolph, that's Justin Zucker. These are two professional athletes. I'm just shocked at the size difference between these two men. The Donor Recognition Garden Party will happen here someday when the snow. Chain Breaker will happen again this summer. This is a ride for the Cancer Center. Football Tailgate Party grows and grows every year. Wine Fest is coming up this year. It will happen in early May, and if you can, try and get to some of the Wine Fest events. They're a lot of fun and is a huge source of revenue for unrestricted revenue for the department. And then Fashion Fest, which has grown from a relatively small event now to a major fashion show every year. And this thing doesn't even advertise, it sells out by word of mouth. Lots of sports team engagement has happened this year too. The Minnesota Wild have become regulars here. The Vikings have been great supporters for a long time. The new professional soccer team has been engaged. The Twins are more engaged now than they have been in the past. And the Timberwolves have been engaged. These are bibs that they donated for kids in the newborn ICU. I think they use some of their own kids as models, and all those guys are 7 feet tall. But so the nice thing is the kids grow into their bibs. We opened the Blythe Brendan Mann Wellness Center on the 5th floor. This provides space for exercise for families, also provides a salon where kids can get haircuts, families can get haircuts. There's a massage for families and the kids. Over 500 appointments to date. So this was a great idea that's been used and just as a stress reliever for our families. Actually through that door is Kyle Rudolph's End Zone. This was funded by over $1 million raised for the project and another $100,000 for programming. Zone is essentially a space for kids and their friends to get away from the hospital a little bit. Includes space just to talk, a kitchen area, a basketball hoop that goes down to about I think 6 feet tall because I can dunk on it. The virtual golf setup here where you can hit balls and kick field goals. So it's a great diversion, and really we had lots of support from our professional teams here in Minnesota to get this up and running. The Zucker Family Suite, Jason Zucker and his wife have led an effort to create a media suite and broadcast studio here. This will be going in next to the chapel very soon. Again, another area primarily for kids and families to get out, have some fun, especially during long hospitalizations. So UMF has done a lot of good things. We are now at a point where we have filled the space in this building. You all remember when we moved over here, 6 years ago? We had the 7th floor was still vacant. All of this was vacant. Really through the work of the foundation and all of you, we've built out the 7th floor. It's an absolutely beautiful postpartum floor. We've, through the foundation, been able to secure the gift of the Wilf Family Foundation for the room we're in, as well as the other conference rooms, and then the build out of the chapel center. So we're full in this space right now. So shifting to our major missions, we have a lot going on. And I just want to highlight some of the things that are going on in education, including our residency, funding from the Department of Health, comment on our physician scientist pathway, and EPAC. So these are our residency statistics. Thank you, Emily, for getting these to me. Continues to go up. I think we're trying to convince people they don't need to each apply to 30 residency programs, but they still seem to think they need to. It creates a huge challenge for Emily's office because you have to screen 1,100 applicants and try and parse this down to the 184 that you're going to actually interview. And that is not an easy job. You can see here we have a good mix of both U.S. grads and international grads, actually pretty close to one another, 589 and 537. And we continue to have good interest from our own students here at the University of Michigan. 24 of our interviews were for students at the university, for students in our own medical school. So anyway, Emily's office parses this from 1,100 down to 184. We then select 26 categorical pediatric residents and 10 med peds residents from this. And this is our list of pediatric residency programs. This is the intern class that will be joining us at the end of June. It's an excellent group, and we're very excited about having them. You'll notice we're up to 26, and we'll talk a little bit about why we're able to do that right now, because for many, many years we were holding this at 23 or 24. In addition to our pediatric residents, we've had a long-standing med peds residency program. These are our 10 new med peds residents. They're a very vital part of what we do here, and this med peds residency is one that really attracts from all over the country. And you can see Wisconsin, Michigan, Rochester, UCLA, Brown, Mayo. So is a program that really has a great draw. So the curriculum in the residency program has continued to evolve, and Emily and her colleagues have really been leaders in this. Academic half days, which we call block education, is now completing its 5th year. And this program's actually been moved out across the country. Other places are adopting this as an idea. And because we're early on in this, Emily's actually leading a study examining the impact of this on board pass rates. It's a big deal to pull all the residents away from everything for a half day, and we want to make sure that it's happening correctly. Our quality improvement curriculum's been integrated for 5 years now. This year, one of our pediatric residents won first place out of 60 entries at a citywide quality improvement competition and forum. Teaching and learning communities have been built into Block Ed. We're doing more to help our residents understand their role in advocacy. Global health through Cindy Howard, Mike Pitt, and others is really recognized as a leader in global education. The curriculums that they create are out on the web and are used all over the United States and all over the world. The nice thing about PAS in a couple of weeks is I get to go to things that don't have anything to do with pediatric oncology or hematology, and you actually see the breadth of what the impact that our faculty are having. So, and finally, we do a great job. We're consistently recognized by ACGME for our compliance and requirements in our residency programs. Now, I mentioned that we're able to expand the residency program. We've expanded it because of the program's ability to compete for MDH funding, the Department of Health funding, in two grants. And they really offer only 2 grants every year, I think. So we've successfully competed for each of these, and every year they've been available. And that's the primary care expansion grant. This is what it says it is. It's a grant to bring in an additional resident and help expand primary care in rural Minnesota. So that allows us to take a person beyond where we would usually be. The International Immigrant Physician Grant Program was started by the Department of Health a few years ago, really to allow pathways for physicians that had completed their training and practice in other countries, but then had to relocate to the United States because of the socioeconomic problems that are way too common in the world. And then these people find themselves here in the U.S. pathway to practice medicine. They have to get training in the U.S. A lot of these people are driving cabs, they're working in labs. We're really not using our people to their ability. So this program brings them in. The trainee, the Department of Health actually provides funding for their training and oversight. The trainee on this track then commits to 5 years of primary care service after their residency is completed. And we're continuing to take individuals into this program. This will be the third year that we add a person to that program. So that really has allowed us to build out the physician scientist training pathway. And, the top exactly correct. Yeah, there's financial support from the Department of Pediatrics. By successfully applying for these grants, you've essentially opened up that window of support. So the PSTP is open to applicants with advanced research degrees or prior research experience. They can participate in the accelerated research pathways that are approved by American Board of Pediatrics. Our first individual in this program was George Christokopoulos. George came here from the University of Athens. He has spent time in research at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. And additionally will be Zach Shaheen from the Medical College of Wisconsin. He is an immunologist, and we're very excited that he will be joining us here. This program really has been spearheaded by Bryce Binstadt, and he and his colleagues have done a great job of building this. And it really is this build your own. It is, we'll talk at the end of this thing. One of our big challenges is the shortage of pediatric subspecialists in this country right now. So it's important that we be able to draw bright people here and retain them. Another big part of education this year and for the last several years is EPAC, and education in pediatrics across the continuum. This is really a program that is trying to shift the paradigm in how we train medical students. It's not a small thing. This is potentially a huge deal and could really impact what we're all doing here in the next few years. So EPAC establishes a model for competency-based medical education through variable time. This is a key part of it. Variable time, meaningfully assessed demonstration of competence, and deliberate entrustment of responsibilities. So again, this is not the current state where, most of us went through, where, you basically arrive, you're going to graduate in May of, whatever it was, whatever May or June of your year. If you pass your classes, you show up, you do a decent job, you're going to pass. This says you could be done in May. You could be done in January if you're doing well. You could be done the following January if there are areas that you've not reached the skill set you need to reach. So this is done as a pilot with UCSF, Colorado, us and the University of Utah, supported by the Josiah Macy Foundation in partnership with AAMCS, ACGME, and the American Board of Pediatrics. These are the leaders here at the university: John Andrews, Betsy Murray, Emily Borman-Chope, Patty Hubday, Lauren Sepp is the EPAC coordinator, and then Michael Cullen in the GME program helping with evaluations. So really we have people in this all the way from medical school through the residencies, through the GME office to make this work smoothly. The core of EPAC, and the thing that could change for all of us, is basing progression on core entrustable professional activities. So reaching a threshold of competence before you leave medical school and enter your residency. This is done through student-initiated just-in-time assessments. This is very, very different than you getting an email after the end of a rotation which you may or may not choose to respond to that day, and then when you finally clean up your email 3 months later, you're wondering, oh man, what did John look like? I kind of remember John, and, but how good did he do, or how good did she do? These are student-initiated just-in-time assessments where the student approaches you as the teacher and says, Bryce, I'd like feedback today on my presentation during rounds. Bryce knows this. The student's going to present during rounds, and at the end of rounds, the student is going to come up to Bryce and say, let's review. And that review is only going to take a minute or two, but it's going to be electronically entered and go into that student's portfolio of assessments. So, this is not something we made up. This is from UMMCH, Core and Trustable Professional Activities. Things like gathering a history, performing a physical exam, recommending and interpreting encounters, things medical students have to do. The just-in-time assessment, like I said, is student-initiated. It's filled out with the preceptor. Takes just a few minutes to complete. It's not hard to do, especially if you were prompted that morning to know you were going to be doing it an hour later. It is the expectation in the program that there's greater than one of these EPA assessed at every half day of clinical experience. So there's a lot of assessment of these students going on. This is what one of them looks like. This is gathering a history and performing a physical examination. There's a range here down the line that starts with not trusted to practice this, inadequate knowledge or skill. Level 2, they're trusted under proactive supervision. Level 3, 3A, they're trusted to do this under reactive or on-demand supervision with supervisors available. This is the break for progression in medical school. They don't have to do it and supervise others. They have to be able to do it with supervision available. Our students that are in EPAC have an average of over 200 assessments per student. The range is anywhere from 150 to 271. They're right now pulling in between 1.5, 2 per clinical session by 10 or 11 preceptors across 8 specialties. And this is what it looks like when you plot out progress. These are our cohorts. We take 4 students in each cohort. This is cohort 1. This is cohort 2. This is professional activity 1, gather a history and perform a physical. You can see they rise up. This level 5 actually corresponds to 3A, the threshold to graduate. And in this instance, by December, most of them were starting to cross that threshold. You can see good progression for both groups. You can see in some things we just didn't do very well at figuring out how to gather those professional activities. This one here is giving or receiving handoffs, and we weren't really good at actually pulling that data in. You can see it's getting better in cohort 2. But it actually allows real-time assessment, and when students have crossed these threshold bars, they're able to move on into their residency program. So we've had 4 cohorts now. The 4th cohort is going to start in June. All of our cohort 1 students transition between August and December of their 4th year of medical school, so a little bit early. Cohort 2 started in 2016. All have transitioned. Cohort 3 started in 17. They're all within what's called the longitudinal integrated curriculum. Whatever, too many acronyms. The LIC really shifts their pathway a little bit more towards a pediatric focus within medical school rather than doing surgery at the VA. You're more likely to do pediatric surgery. Cohort 4 has recently been selected and will start in June. This is an exciting program and potentially is going to change the way we do assessments of learners. It's getting published right now. John, Emily, others just had the first big publication of this in academic pediatrics earlier this year. It's great to teach medical students. It's great to teach residents. We need to teach ourselves. The faculty need to develop and grow as professionals. And this is the work that we've asked Tony Moran and Kathy Bendel to become very engaged with. And they've done an excellent job. And I just want to highlight some of the things that they have done. So development meetings for the faculty. This past year we had 4 meetings of the assistant professors, 2 of the associate professors, and then for the first time a separate meeting for full professors and a separate meeting for our PhD faculty, recognizing needs change over time. The topics at the development meetings have been pretty wide. Topics to improve scholarly productivity, writing groups, how do you work with industry, how do you work with research librarians, working with the Biostatistical Data and Analysis Center, REDCap databases, academic findings to media, enhancing leadership skills, how to negotiate, how to create and lead teams. Aaron Friedman came in, spent some time talking about the development of leadership in academic medicine. Aaron, who many of you know was former chair of the department here as well as former dean of the medical school. Aaron gave these lectures to the incoming pediatric chair group for years and years, and he's been coming over here now to do those. David Rothenberger came to talk about leadership, succession, and legacy. David is the person that initiated the Emerging Leaders Program in the medical school. David is former chair of the surgery department. Also, more discussion about preventing burnout. This is work Naomi Duke and others have done, looking at burnout rates within the Department of Pediatrics here and trying to assess how we can better deal with those. Peer-to-peer groups have been developed. These are just faculty who believe they have something they'd like to share with their peers. So 8 faculty have led 9 different peer-to-peer groups. Each topic's offered more 2 or 3 times. More than 60 faculty have attended. It can be things as straightforward as poster and design and slide design, teaching tips, to how do you plan for retirement? This is Michael Resnick's latest theme. Michael's been coming back to do this. I think he's enjoying this retirement thing. Plan to have at least 8 topics available to allow us to actually teach one another. Peer-to-peer productivity. This is the brainchild of Mike Pitt. In the first 15 months, 74 assistant professors have logged over 2,000 submissions of contracts, grants, and manuscripts. I don't know about you, but I do better if I have somebody nudging me along. So if I'm working in partnership with somebody and I know that I have peers that are expecting me to deliver, I have more pressure to deliver. This is also recognition that many assistant professors are coming through residencies at really a time when residencies are focused pretty exclusively on meeting clinical competence. There's not a lot of research time, there's not a lot of writing time during residency. So an assistant professor comes in, yeah, I want to contribute to the medical literature, I want to do research projects, help me get it started, and that's what this is about. This is about more than that. They actually, depending on how many of these things you do, you get tokens. If you get enough tokens, they go in a drawing, and eventually you get some, you can be selected to get some, I think it's money. It's not just, it's money, right? It's not like thousands of dollars or anything, but it's what? It's a good little prize, yes. But again, it's made it fun, and it's really created a peer bond among a lot of our faculty. So writing groups are new. We have 28 assistant professors now in a peer writing group. We have other initiatives. A women's book club has been started. There are 26 assistant and 10 associate professors. This is new. More focus on mentoring. Iris Borowski, Peg Semrud-Kleichman, others have really done this through the master mentoring programs. If you get an invitation for dinner from me or Michael Georgia for Angela or something, you should hope it's from Angela because she's the best cook. But this is not because you've done something wrong. This is because we're really trying to find ways to connect people better. We've also been able to support individuals to go to national meetings to develop leadership skills. These include Colleen Carell, Sarah Cusick, Nancy Harper, Brian Brandon, Kareem Sadak. And we had the Julie Ross recognition event that 83 of the faculty were able to come to this year. At the same time, really looking at equity, diversity, and inclusion issues is a big deal. We are a better faculty if we're an inclusive faculty and a more diverse faculty. So our goal really is not to be passive about addressing these issues, but to be intentional as we seek to build the faculty. So there's a council that has 15 faculty members. There is a pretty aggressive diversity plan. We've had 2 grand rounds on these topics. There's implicit bias training that's been completed by over 90% of the department leadership, the intern selection committee and fellowship program directors. How to be an ally training we've talked about here. Again, there's lots of resources here. Please feel free to take a look at this on the university website. But Kathy Bendel and her group has done a great job of this. Clinical mission. We're not going to go in a ton of detail about this other than to say that what you already know. Clinically, we keep getting busier. This is from the ER. Mark, thank you for updating this slide at 2 o'clock yesterday afternoon when we realized we had the wrong slide in the slide deck. The ED actually has now crossed a threshold. It has seen over 100,000 children since the initiation of the program in 2006. Again, this is where we started back 2005, about 2,000 visits a year. Most of those were specialty visits. They were kids with cancer, kids with liver disease coming into the ED. They were generally triaged and sent to the floor. The Children's Hospital opened in 2011, but things had already started to accelerate. In 2017, we grew another 7% over 2016 and have crossed that 15,000 threshold, which is where most of us thought this was probably going to cap out. We kind of built it for that cap. So we have space challenges in the ED that we're going to need to figure out how to address. But this has been an outstanding program and one that is consistently recognized across the Fairview Health System as being one of their best programs in terms of outcomes, patient satisfaction. It's been a huge undertaking, and the leadership of that ED and all our ED physicians have contributed to this. Revenue has continued to go up. We've surpassed $50 million now in clinical revenue. Our costs have gone up too, but we do still have a profit on the clinical side every year. We take that money off the clinical side, we transfer it to the academic side to help fund things that are difficult to fund. This past year, we were ranked in 5 specialties: neonatology, gastroenterology and GI surgery, nephrology, pulmonary and diabetes, and endocrine. We have been pretty much ranked between 4 and 6 for as long as we've been doing rankings. Another big initiative on the clinical side that is really paying dividends has been coming from the work of Abe Jacobs, Sam Gupta, and a whole lot of other people, and that is safety. How do we make this hospital safe? Hospitals are inherently dangerous places. It's a complicated system. There is a lot of stuff that can happen badly, but there are organizations that have addressed this, and if you've attended the error reduction training, you've seen the examples of aircraft carriers where they've taught a whole bunch of 18-year-olds how to manage an aircraft carrier and actually get it done without hurting anybody. So this is work that you can actually do. But typically what you see is you see an increase. As you start to measure, you see an increase. All of a sudden you're reporting your errors where you might have been just not so much reporting your errors in the past. Followed by performance improvements. Maybe a little bit of slide back when people get complacent. Oh yeah, we're doing really good. We don't need to think about this as much. And then long-term improvement through continual prevention, detection, and correction cycles. So this is our curve, and this has made a tremendous difference. This is that acceleration part of the curve we talked about. We formed safety event review teams back in May of 2015. All of a sudden, we started to measure this more and more. We joined the patient safety program. We began error prevention education, leadership education, safety coach program. All this led to us seeing our errors more and more. And then really over the last year, we've seen a tremendous drop in those errors. And I congratulate Abe, Sam, and everybody who's been involved in this. This is not just a physician event. This is physician, nurses, everybody in the hospital contributing to making the place a safer hospital. We have some clinical updates. Mentioned before that Dr. Zaki is going to be leaving the program in June. We have hired Dr. Massimo Griselli, who is joining us. He is an Italian trained in England primarily. He's currently been working in Saudi Arabia as he has been busy studying for his USMLE steps 1, 2, and 3 because he wants to get this done, and he has successfully passed all steps of USMLE 1, 2, and 3. It was one of the most interesting things he says. I said, well, why did you go there? He said, well, there's plenty of time to study in Saudi Arabia because there's really nothing to do after work. So he's there, he studied, went all the way back to his biochemistry, and will arrive here in June. Continuing our theme of hiring Italians, we've hired Paolo Pianosi into the pulmonary group. Paul actually is a well-known person. Paul was the director of the pulmonary program down at Mayo Clinic for many years, was interested in spending some time in Europe, has been in England working at, I think, Great Ormond Street. I can't recall exactly which hospital in London he's been at for the last few years. He's decided to come back to the United States and actually sought us out to join the pulmonary program here. So Paul will be joining us in July and will be a great addition. His interests really are around exercise physiology and pulmonary medicine. On the research side, we've been very busy. We've had 85 new grants in 2017 from 54 different PIs across 15 different divisions. That's great. That's really great. In just terms of new federal grants, this is the list in alphabetical order. Several new RO1s, Raghu Rao, Fu Tran, I think Michael Georgiev, Aaron Kelly, several new contracts, HRSA grants, NHANES grants, R21s, R37s. So again, it's been a very strong year on the grant side. That said, 2017 was not as strong a year as we were at in 2016. This big rise and this big drop is from the CTSA grant, which has been housed in pediatrics, but I was hoping that we would start to see this rise. And maybe in 2018 it will, based on what we're seeing now in terms of grants being funded. This puts us at 17 across about 110, 120 departments of pediatrics in the United States. That's like, I think, closer to 140 actually. So not quite top decile, not top 10 where we were with the CTSA. But again, people are getting funded, and I can just encourage people to stick with it. We just got funded at the 3rd percentile for a grant I'm PI on that has been out there for like 3 years, and the NIH finally decided they were going to fund it. We'd probably just given up, but things are coming around and they're starting to spend money. This is our ranking and our peers there. We have Case Western, Columbia, NYU, Alabama, Einstein. We see this kick up, and I think it will next year, really because the CTSA has been renewed. So this is Bruce Blazer, who asked me to take his name off this and probably is upset that I put his picture on it. Sorry, Bruce. I think he's listening. So, but this grant was successfully recompeted. It is a $42 million grant that Bruce is the PI on, but this really is a team effort. The grant itself was over 1,300 pages. It's a huge undertaking. Major components of this grant will include support of the Clinical Research Support Center. That's a one-stop shop that'll launch in May. Support for biomedical informatics. Early stage translational support that includes things like the Pediatric Device Development Award Program and Device Breakthrough Collaborative. We'll be resuming the KL2 Scholars Program, and all the division directors received a note yesterday about the KL2 program. They are looking for letters of intent. I think those letters of intent are due at the end of this month. Does that sound right? Brenda's nodding yes. That will fund, we're probably going to take 3 fellows a year into the program. So again, look at the faculty, and if you're interested in this, please talk to your division directors and start to prepare that letter of intent. There's a new TL1 program geared also at pre- and postdoctoral trainees. So really, if you want to learn more about the CTSI, as their website or call, it's a great resource to have for the university. Other things that have been going on, we continue to work with the Masonic Gift. This year we had $1 million from the Masons to and use across the department to further the academic mission, not just in this department, but in children's health. Tate Gislin has received some support for his work in inflammation and pregnancy, Rebecca Schlafer in maternal incarceration, and Jed Eliason, who is in the Center for Neurobehavioral Development in the College of Education and Human Development. Jed is working in neural pathways of children with autism, and he's been a great collaborator with the autism program. A new focus this year has been on childhood obesity, and these are the leaders of our program here. Aaron Kelly, Justin Ryder, Claudia Fox really are all nationally and internationally recognized for the work they do. And I think we kind of take them for granted here. But we are pushing to create a Center for Obesity Research here at the University of Minnesota, and believe not just across this department, but really across several departments in the medical school and beyond, we have the capacity to actually make a major contribution in this area. So this is going to be a focus for several years to come with Masonic money and department support. Masonic Gift in 2017, we continue to target work in sarcoma. This is Brandon Moriarty. He's an assistant professor in the Pediatric Hematology Oncology division. And Brandon has taken his work in this and leveraged it into a Department of Defense grant. And more than that, Brandon and others have actually taken this work and translated this. So we're going to wind this down by talking about something that has been really neat and worked together. I've seen a great example of people working together to do something beyond what anybody was going to do alone. So this is Zach Sobiech. Zach was a boy who was diagnosed with osteosarcoma at 14 years old. Zach died at 18. He was a talented musician before he got cancer, but as he realized where the impact cancer was having on his life, he used his music as a way to express that, say goodbye to his friends and family, and released a song called Clouds that was recorded and debuted on KS95, the radio station, several years ago, I think about 5 years ago now. The song was not just sappy or something. This actually was very good music and had really professional collaborators with him. When he passed away, this song actually reached #1 on iTunes, Billboard, and Spotify. And that's pretty remarkable. A year later, there was a Clouds Choir at Mall of America, and that's become an annual event. So Zach and his family created the Zach Sobiech Osteosarcoma Fund. These were not wealthy people. These were like normal people who decided this was awful and they were going to do something about it. They worked with the Children's Cancer Research Fund to create this and used funds from his music and other fundraisers to support osteosarcoma research here. That fund has generated over $1.5 million right now, and it continues to grow. If you want to know more, you feel free to look this up at the Children's Cancer Org website. But this is great, all well and good. The next step was actually doing something with the money. And this is where Brenda Weigel, David Largasvada, many others started to step up and say, well, how are we going to do something important here? They created a registry, the Biology of Osteosarcoma Registry and Biobank, and created grants. And these grants supported the work of Brandon Moriarty and others. Brandon discovered a gene, SEMA4D, which was a potential oncogenic driver in osteosarcoma. And wonderfully, there was already an antibody that targets this gene product. So they did that work in mice, showed that the models that decreased osteosarcoma tumor burden in a mouse model of osteosarcoma, and turned it over to Dr. Greengard, who's the phase 1 investigator here at the University of Minnesota, who developed a national trial, phase 1, phase 2 trial of VX2503, which is the monoclonal antibody. Phase 1 is going on in relapsed solid tumors. Phase 2 will be in relapsed osteosarcoma only. And it's very exciting that in a relatively few years, this discovery has actually gone into clinical trials and is enrolling right now. So as of January this year, 6 patients have completed enrollment on the Phase 1, 1 on Phase 2, and it's continuing to grow. So this would be a good thing. You know, I've been in oncology a long time. It's kind of disappointing to treat new patients with osteosarcoma with the same 5 drugs I treated them with in 1984. So this is a good. We need these things. But I think this is an example of what can happen when we pull together across philanthropy, across basic science, across our clinical sciences. And these things go on over and over again. This is just one that I was more aware of than others because of my role in pediatric oncology. So, good thing, and thank you, Emily, Brenda, and everyone, and thank you to Zach and the philanthropic community that's made this happen. All right, integration update. What time is it? Let's see. Yeah, so 8:16, okay. So integration update. We are continuing to work on this. Believe it or not, yesterday at about 5 o'clock, I think we finally reached agreement on what the letter of intent says that is going to be presented to the Children's Board tomorrow. So we are reached agreement on some sticky areas. I honestly have to congratulate the leadership at Children's who has worked incredibly hard to get this done, and Eric Kaler and the entire team here at the university. So nothing's official yet, but we have that work product, that letter of intent that is going to be looked at presumably by the board at Children's and the board at Fairview this week. Fairview's letter of intent is completely different than the one between us and Children's because the Fairview letter of intent is really around facilities and services more. If these letter of intents are approved, the next step will be another letter of intent that is in discussion with Alina. Once that's done, then we will be looking at bringing these things to the Board of UMP and the Board of Regents. The Board of UMP should not be a problem. We've been discussing this at UMP for 9 months, 10 months, 14 months. It's been a long time. So nothing's going to take anybody by surprise. And I've met with every department head to go through his or her concerns about this. The regents know about this. They're actually pushing us to try and get it done. So I think we're in a reasonably positive space right now. I have no idea what's going to happen at 8:30 this morning because it has really been a very active iterative process that typically starts at 6 in the morning and goes till about 9 at night all week. So we're getting there. If all this happens, we would hopefully then hope for final documents later in 2018 and then creation of this new organization in 2019 sometime. So I think it has actually a chance of being real. So that's the update. All this creates challenges and opportunities. It's just a change in uncertainty. This is a challenge for us. You don't exactly know what your job exactly is going to be in a year. What does it look like? We know what it looks like now, but the opportunity to change is the opportunity to grow and the opportunity to become something that we're not now that's hopefully better. And I think that opportunity is, if that opportunity is handed to us, if this event goes forward and we have the opportunity to do this, it's ours to run with. And not just like ours, meaning the university gets to run with it, but ours in the collective ours between us and Children's to run with this and actually create something that we want to turn over to the kids in EPAC right now who are coming through medical school. This is our chance. So change and uncertainty are tough, but change and uncertainty aren't bad. Things have to get a little bit unstable for them to take new form. And I would suggest that we have a great opportunity in this time. Another challenge right now is recruiting pediatric subspecialists. people are not entering, pediatric residents are not entering subspecialties in the rates that they were in the past. In some areas, there's still a decent supply, but pulmonary, genetics, nephrology, these things are getting very difficult to find, and we have to create an environment that people want to be in. And finally, the always finance challenge, which never goes away. How do we fund the academic effort? Especially, how do we fund our academic efforts at a time when we're seeing reduced reimbursement for working harder? So our RVUs are going up, people are hitting their targets, people are working very hard, yet the amount of dollars we get from an RVU goes up. This is part of the national infatuation with, decreasing the supply of money into medicine. Pediatrics is particularly at risk, and we all saw that with the attempts to reduce Medicaid funding this year and the issues around reauthorization of the CHIP program. That's part of the driver for doing something with children. We need to be efficient to get this done right. So I think we're going to be, we'll have a all-staff meeting here. I think it's April 30th in the morning here. We will hopefully have the results by then of the discussions with the Children's Board and the Fairview Board. We'll know what the next steps are going to be. Abe Jacobs going to be leading that discussion. We can talk about it more then. One way or another, there's change and uncertainty, and one way or another, it's going to be up to us to step up and figure out how to turn this into something positive. So with that, I just want to acknowledge several people that helped and did a great job at getting the first draft of this. So thank you very much to get this done. Rob and his staff do a tremendous job. Lori Wallen contributing the grant information, Mike Rose and Muna Warderson-Smith in analytics, UMF led by Elizabeth and Christy, John, Patty, and Emily, who all contribute to the education sections of this, Tony and Kathy, Abe, Emily, Angela, and Michael Georgia for their critical review, but mostly to everybody here who has done such a great job. So with that, I'll stop and be happy to take questions, and we've got 10 minutes. Thanks. All right, questions? Come on, Peter, ask me a public health question. Sue. Okay.
Joe, it seems like with the potential for consolidation, it opens a door for more aggressive recruitment of physician scientists. But one of the things that will be a limiting factor in that is if you have a basic scientist wet lab space. Any thoughts or now we're getting real pie in the sky, considerations about how we can provide the best environment for the physician scientists we know we need?
Right. So there's a lot going on here right now in the medical school looking at laboratory space. It's a concern across the entire school, and Tucker Labine has been charged by the dean to actually create a process for assessing use of space and essentially resizing space distributions across the medical school. At this point, there's no hardwired line item in to build a lab building over on this side of the river, and to the best of my knowledge, there's nothing on tap to extend lab space over in the biomedical discovery district. So it's really more a matter of making better use of the space we have, and I think there are probably options to do that. It is an issue. It's a big issue, and we are going to have to address it as best we can, but probably within the confines of the physical space we have today. Yeah.
Thanks for the update, Joe. And, it's encouraging that things look positive for the integration, but I think that it's not something that's going to happen anytime soon. And that begs the question, what do we do about our current needs? We're outgrowing our space, need for physicians, need to advance our programs with our current challenging partnership.
Yeah. So I think we'll have a stronger sense of direction here, presumably by the end of the month, though I've said that like continually and I'm always wrong. But I think we continue to look for opportunities with Fairview to grow and build out new space. We have to do it in a thoughtful way. We do have remaining philanthropy here from the original naming gift of this hospital, and then the subsequent gifts that can be used to do some of that work. And I think that's work that we continue to have to push to get done. The final result of this essentially would create new ownership of the buildings here. And then we would be having those discussions within a new context. But I think you're right. I mean, nobody's going to flip a switch in July of 2019 and all of a sudden magically there's a 500-bed children's hospital and everything else. I mean, or programs are going to just jump up and run down to Chicago Avenue or over here. That just isn't going to happen. So we have to continue to work with Fairview to do that. There's a lot of work going on between Jacob Tolar and James Herford right now to actually get to a more effective model than where we've been for the last, 5 Fairview CEOs. It's been tough, but I think they're very serious about getting it done right this time. And I feel it's probably more positive right now than it's been. That doesn't mean it's not a problem. I mean, we know we've got issues that we need to get resolved, but I think we're going to have to resolve them with Fairview, at least for the short run.
Okay, Joe, I'll be nice. Thank you very much. And I realize you're anticipating a question about population or public health, and that's my role too. So I realize that the discussion has been more on the concrete, what we have and how to integrate those. But I do wonder, what is the opportunity that a system like this could have, and where have those discussions been, if at all, around how we can create a statewide approach to health improvement rather than just medical care?
Yeah. Thank you, Peter. So there actually has been discussion about this. It's been a piece of this from day one. The missions of the new organization actually are 4. So it's clinical, education, research, and advocacy has been added as a core mission of the new academic health system. Also clear from day one has been the importance of the resources generated with the new health system actually being used to impact the care of children across the state, independent of whether they're being cared for in Essentia's health system, Sanford's health system, or anywhere else, through educational initiatives, through telemedicine, through other ways that we can push things out. A big area that people want to get right and get after very quickly is mental health in children. That's been a constant shortfall across this state. And I think part of the hope is that the consolidation will actually create some room for investment in things like mental health. So those are definitely there and definitely things that the organization wants to do well. The realistic end of the world is that you also have to do the things well that generate the money to be able to do the things that can't generate money that are important. And they're all important. It's unfortunately some things have money attached to importance and some things don't. So we have to do both. And but it is recognized that this needs to be an academic health system, and that the vision is that this will be the leading academic health system in the Midwest. And if this creates a hospital size, that puts us in the top 10 of hospitals in the United States. So there's responsibility and expectations that come with that. Okay. Others? Okay. Oh, Lydia?
I think with regards to faculty, I think we're not too bad in recruiting people to come here, but retention seems to be an issue. And I think trying to figure out or seeing what the core reason is for that, because it doesn't matter if we can recruit people, but if they don't stick around. The other thing is, you know, looking at the Division of Pediatrics and probably the medical school too, but looking at the diversity of the division or the department, because just as an example, look across this room and, you know, it's easier to pick out the brown and black faces because, for whatever reason, but I think it's an issue because our patient population is changing. Right. And patients like to see doctors who look more like them. Yeah. So what do you think, or what's the division or the department doing in reference to retaining faculty?
Well, I think we are doing our best to retain faculty. Part of the downstream effect of this shortage in subspecialists is this sort of very aggressive recruitment by other centers. A lot of people in this room have been the targets of those recruitment efforts. Somebody gets a grant, they get an R01 grant, all of a sudden everybody's beating down your door because it's getting harder and harder to do that. So we have been successful in some of those retentions, and we have not been successful in some of those retentions. It's sometimes you are just absolutely limited by the amount of resources you have and how much you can put into one bucket or another. I think we need to offer competitive salaries to all of our faculty. You know, we need to have recruiting pathways that really begin in medical school, residency, and fellowship. It's a little bit encouraging to actually, again, look at the class pictures of the residents and the med peds residents and actually see more diversity there than we would have seen 10 years ago when it really was just a straight white, you know, group. I think the other part of it is our search committees have to be cognizant of this, and that's why we've pushed implicit bias training out to all the division directors so at least people can have that in the back of their mind as they're making judgments on individuals. I think we need to do our best to recruit, you know, as broadly as we can and bring those people in. It is just tough, and one of our challenges here is there is often this reaction to say, oh, look, in our fellowship, we have a person that's going to graduate and he or she's great and we know this, we should bring them on, right? Well, and what we've usually done then is brought on somebody that looks just like us because we've been recruiting people that look like us forever and we keep just cycling through it. So being aware of it and trying our best to be volitional about changing is what we're going to do and what we are actually doing. So, all right. Okay, well, thank you all.
I didn't know if that was an invitation to ask or you were...
I was just teasing you, but no.
You have been disconnected from the meeting.